Incoming transmission. Initiating data compilation protocol. Compilation complete. Enhancing. Enhancing. Initializing data playback. Code Alpha. Begin playback.
Good morning, everybody. This is Matt, and this is Madness AM for July 13th, 2015, and it is 5:21 a.m. to be precise in whatever the hell time zone this is. CDT. I can never remember. Ever since we moved here, I've had a problem getting my time zone straight. But anyway, right off the bat, this is something that I just found out this morning that I wanted to share my feelings on. I don't think that this is by any stretch a good or decent venue to discuss this at any length, and I don't feel I could do it any amount of justice. But I just wanted to touch on this because it's kind of sad, and or for me, kind of sad, very sad for others. And see, already, I'm mucking it up. But Satoru Iwata, the president of Nintendo, passed away on July 11th, and he was 55. And yeah, I had grown up playing a lot of his games. He'd gotten his hands dirty in quite a few of these franchises in their infancy, like Kirby and Earthbound, or Mother, as it's known in Japan, and another series that I had absolutely adored as a kid, excuse me, called Adventures of Lolo, and what did it have, like three installments on the Nintendo that I know of. And I remember that was a series that I rented with great regularity, probably enough to have purchased at least one of the games outright as a kid, going down to the video store, and that was a weekly thing that we did. Was my mom would take me down to the video store, and I'd get to rent a game. And there were some regulars that I would keep coming back to, ones that I hadn't beaten, which was most of the games I played as a kid, unless I had a Game Genie or something at one point. But yeah, Adventures of Lolo was just neat, and had great art, and he had done programming it on it, I believe. This is a lot of stuff that I was kind of curious about after reading about this, that I went and looked up, and I knew about like Earthbound and Kirby and stuff. I was like, oh, Adventures of Lolo, yeah, that's right, because he got his start in HAL Laboratories, I guess, and Lolo was a HAL Laboratories property, as was Kirby, I believe. But yeah, it just a really cool guy, and I'd always enjoyed watching him be interviewed, and he seemed to be a pretty charismatic and kind fellow. So yeah, just thoughts and feelings and prayers to go out to his friends and family. Just a neat guy that another hero that passed away too young, but makes me want to go back and play some of those older games, and just with him in mind, as an adult now, later on. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of talk about that briefly. I hadn't, I don't know how long this news has been circulating, but I had just found out about it this morning. So yeah, there's that. Why am I up at 5 o'clock in the morning? I got up at probably about 1 a.m. because I'd woken up at about midnight, and I was like, I am not getting back to sleep there's just that point sometimes where the switch flips on and there's no shutting it off again, and settling back down to try to get more sleep. But I mean, I've been setting up my days now, starting last Friday, that I'd wake up at 5, go down to the gym downstairs and work out, and try to combat my very sedentary lifestyle. And that's, successful so far. So went downstairs, did that whole thing. So now I'm kind of ahead of the game today. We'll see how when I crash though later. I'm sure I'll want to take a nap or something. But yeah, first order of business. First couple items are done, finished, complete. So off to a good start so far this morning. This weekend, however, I didn't get any work done whatsoever. We just kind of hung out, which was super nice because this was the first weekend that we've actually had in our new place, to just kind of decompress. Not move anything or pack anything or set up try to get settled into any new routines. We just kind of chilled out and watched more Frasier. Of course, that's kind of our go-to visual comfort food, I guess. Narrative comfort food, whatever you'd call it. So that was pretty awesome. And I did more drooling over the new Age of Sigmar news that's been exploding all over the place. I don't know what it is, but this Age of Sigmar stuff has really kind of captured my imagination. And it's made me go back and break out all my old surviving miniatures and stuff, and think about setting up a routine where I dive into the hobby, maybe once a week or something. And I've been thinking about doing some new sort of live show or something, like a live kind of in addition to the live stream where I work on Savage and everything, maybe like once a week, like on the weekend, a live like hobby thing, which will keep me going and keep me interested in it. And if anyone else wants to hang out and paint and put together models as well, just kind of this sort of chillaxing environment kind of thing where you can come and bring your bring your minis and share back and forth, all digitally, but I'd be hosting it on my Twitch channel, maybe Sundays or something. Might be kind of neat for a handful of hours. I had considered too, maybe even we could put on a movie, all at the same time and sit through. I mean, I wouldn't be showing the film on the channel, of course, because that would be illegal. But if anybody else owned the video too, like we could all start it at the same time and just sort of have it on while we're painting and modeling and whatever's going on. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about. I don't know. I'll play with the idea over the next week or something, and see if anyone else is interested in something like that. So yeah, other than that, I've just been looking over these Age of Sigmar rules, which are 4 pages, and I'm really excited about it. I like that it's starting out very compact and very light and very small. Having this core rule system that is very straightforward, easy to set up, easy to learn, and easy to get into, and easy to reference because of its brevity, and accessibility. So I've been looking over those, and I've been also looking over some of the war scrolls for some of the minis that I currently have. Like I've got a bunch of like models from the Lizardmen range and Bretonnians because they came in a box set. Quite a few orcs and Empire miniatures. A lot of these are not assembled, and 99% of them are not painted. but I have quite a few of those. I have some undead minis laying around. So yeah, it's starting to get me excited. Like when I was like 11 or 12, and I'd break out all my magic cards, and my buddy would have his magic cards, and we'd hang out and we'd have like a sleepover or something, and I'd bring them all over to his house, and we just stack our magic cards up like yay high. My desk is down here, but and we would just play games like that. We would just like my whole collection versus yours. Let's play. And sometimes it would be really boring and horrible because you'd run into like 50 land cards or something, or you'd have all the shit that you couldn't play with. You'd wind up with just totally unusable hands. But it was a lot of fun. It was interesting little nerdy experiments, and we had a lot of fun doing it. We'd have a movie on in the background or something, and we just do that for hours. So this is kind of getting me excited for that again. Age of Sigmar kind of strikes me as a similar. You would approach it in a similar fashion. You have this sort of very basic, easy core rule set, and then all your war scrolls provide your exceptions, depending on what you have in your army or your hand or whatever to line up the analogy. But and that's what excites me about it too, is that it's this you can expand upon it so much in any direction, because it's all in your war scrolls. It's you could come out with these units that have special terrain rules and stuff, or that might take more better advantage of terrain, or I don't know. I have yet to actually play a little test game with some of the miniatures I've got laying around, but I think I might do that at some point this week. But I could see myself doing that, like with the magic cards, taking like all my Warhammer minis and just being like, blah, there's everything on the table, let's play, So in that respect, it's exciting. I'm not a competitive gamer, either in video games or any other, games in any other capacity. I'm not really competitive. I rarely play, any like match style games or anything. I played a lot of Magic, but I was always more interested in the outcomes and what could happen during the game. So I guess like more narrative play interests me, I guess. Like what can happen, like from start to finish, like the epic moments punctuating the match or the session are the things that interest me more. I don't necessarily care too much if I lose. It feels good to stomp somebody into the ground though, but with your army or your deck or whatever. But I'm always more interested in how things kind of play out. So I think Age of Sigmar kind of caters to that a little better. So yeah, pretty cool. Of course, all of the stuff that Games Workshop is releasing is freaking expensive, like always. So that is a bit of a bummer. But like I said, I've got this huge backlog of minis that are just kind of sitting around, and I could either sell them or I could do something with them. And I figure I'd like to take a stab at doing something with them. So this has kind of reinvigorated my interest in the fantasy setting of Warhammer in general, especially since all my rule books were destroyed in the fire. So I had codices, whatever, which are the army books, and a couple editions of the fantasy battle rule books as well. I can't remember what edition I had. I want to say it was either 5th or 6th was the most recent one I had. Whatever the one was where the box set was a force of Empire. It was an Empire army and an Orc army. The most recent Orcs and the most recent Empire. So it was like it came with handgunners and spearmen and an Empire general, I think, and then like a war boss and error boys and orc boys with two choppas. And what was oh yeah, the Empire had a cannon, and the orcs have a chariot. And I have a bunch of those still. The set is incomplete, because I played with a buddy of mine a long time ago, and I was like, here, you play the Empire and I'll play orcs, and we'll both paint them and stuff. And since then I've lost a handful of them, but a lot of them are still on their sprues and everything. So that might be kind of fun to break out there, and yeah, just kind of a mishmash of everything I've got, and just to see what happens. Try to rope somebody into playing with me. So yeah, that's fun. So yeah, Age of Sigmar. Maybe get back into some hobby stuff. And I know I went over this a lot on the last podcast on Friday, but I'm still jazzed about it, man. I'm still excited about getting back into this stuff, and a little scared. My wallet is scared, but thankfully I've got a bunch of old stuff laying around that that wouldn't be too much of an issue. I've got tons of stuff that I can use, and I don't have to go out and buy anything, especially because the Age of Sigmar rules and the War Scrolls are all free and online, all free. I printed them out. Boom, nice and neat. 4 pages of rules. So yeah, one thing that I wanted to talk about that I'm also very excited about, that's really changed my workflow. I feel like that's an understatement. Okay, here's what I'm talking about is this program called Tiled Map Editor. And I've been using it as an alternative to Game Maker Studio's built-in room editor, which I cannot stand. And it even affects me physically because of it feels like a really junky controller or something, where you have to really force the buttons, to get whatever your little avatar on the screen to move and do what you want him to do, and it's very unresponsive, and the combination of keys that you have to hold down and use when you're applying like groups of tiles and stuff, and you're painting with tiles, or object instances within the room editor is just tends to be murder on like my hands, my pinky especially. Holding down Control or Shift or both of them, or it just it's very unwieldy, and I know I've complained about it in depth before. I can't remember if I have on Madness AM, but on like my live stream, and if anybody that comes in there while I'm working, if I happen to be working with Game Maker's room editor, they've heard me curse up a blue streak because of it. But this thing is like the dark clouds parting, an array of light shooting out, from the center, and illuminating this beautiful patch of scenery on the ground nearby, and I'm just like, oh, this is what it can be like. I've been living in this hole, scrounging for worms and rats, and I found a way out to the surface, to the fresh air, to the better food. I feel sustained and strong. But I mean, and it's just cut my my workload. Not my workload, but the time it takes to do any of this stuff. It's cut it down by a considerable amount, and it's just a great editor. But using that in conjunction with this other program called Game Maker Studio Default Room Editor, just really, really small, lightweight utilitarian program that somebody on the Game Maker community had written. So the GMC, I found it on the forums, and it's by a user called Pasty. And what you do is you take a tiled map editor document, which are .tmx files. So it's a project file that you've created within tiled map editor, and you can drop these into the tiled importer for GameMaker Studio, and it will convert it to a .gmx file, which is the proprietary file type that GameMaker uses to create assets within your GameMaker project file. And you can load as many of these things into the converter as you want to. And you can tell it your tile depth and all that, the layer depth, the layer depth and the depth spacing. So if you have like a tile layer that's, at 1,000 or whatever, and you want your spacing to be 100, it'll create, it'll make sure that it creates those tile layers, in increments of 100, and it'll be all nice and neat and tidy within your GameMaker Studio project file as a room asset. So it's fantastic, and you can batch process them too. You can throw as many of those TMX files into the converter as you want to, and you just click batch process, and it does the rest for you. And then you just drop everything into your GameMaker Studio folder. So those two things feel like a lifeline for me. Just a fantastic couple of programs there. So that's what I have been rejoicing about lately. Those are the two things that have really excited me, is the Age of Sigmar stuff, the prospect of getting back into modeling and painting and in some degree gaming with the miniatures again, and the tiled importer and tiled map editor. Those two things combined. With their powers combined, they make my life way easier. So I will put links to tiled map editor and the tiled importer in the show notes. I haven't decided exactly what I'm going to be doing yet about an audio-only companion to the video, or the vlog, I guess, podcast versus vlog kind of thing. No, I guess I'll just keep splitting them up just in case, people want an easy access to the audio-only stuff. So, yeah, there you have it. That's pretty much all we got going for today. I will see you tomorrow. Take care, and thank you for listening.
No, baby. No, baby.
Hey. When?
Hey! No, baby.
When?
Hey! No, baby. No, baby. No, baby.
Hey, hey.
No, 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 no. No, baby. No, baby.